All right, everyone, welcome back to another video. So I don't do these tutorial videos too often, but I felt like making one today, and I just wanted to discuss a few tips and tricks that you can apply to your iRacing driving to help you kind of break that threshold of the 2K iRating range. Now, I've been on iRacing for about 3 years now, and I would say going from I don't know, going from maybe 800 to 1500 iRating was very easy. That didn't take too long at all. But going from 1500 iRating to 2500 iRating, that took me quite a while. So I want to just help you guys out. If you're in that range, you want to get past the 2.5K barrier, this is how to do it. This is going to apply to both the road and formula cars. So you can apply these techniques to both sides of the sim. So without further ado, I'm going to be driving the F4 car around Daytona today. I know the F4 doesn't race here in the actual simulator, but I actually really like using this track for testing because it's got a variety of different corners and braking types and all that. Like, for example, right here, we're going through the bus stop, high-speed corner, very late braking into the chicane, and usually very light braking as well. So this track is great for all sorts of different driving techniques. I always use it as a test track. Plus, I've been here in real life, so I know how to drive this track very well, and I've seen all the little weird intricacies and just weird things that happen when you actually go to a track in real life. So should be interesting. Let's jump right into it. All right, we're in the F4 car today. I think this is one of the best cars to learn from in iRacing because, especially for open wheelers, this teaches you all about momentum. This car is like driving a go-kart. That's my biggest piece of advice I can give to you. There's a program called iOverlay. It's free. You can find it on the internet. You can download it, and it's going to help you visualize your throttle and brake trace. So you can see right in the center of my screen, right where the wheel is, I have iOverlay enabled, and you can see there's my throttle trace and there is my brake trace. So very, very important when we are braking on iRacing and in real life, you want to apply what is called trail braking. Now, I know my, let's say, high 1000 to 2500 iRating drivers are going to know this, but what you need to do is you're going to originally in the corner, when you pick your braking point, whatever meter distance that is from the apex, you're going to brake hard originally. iRacing usually works the best at around 80%. That's the number you want to hit. So if you can practice hitting that 80% number, and you can see what I'm doing is you want to hit that peak, and then you're going to slowly trail off the brakes. And once you reach the point of the middle of the corner, that is when you let off the brakes completely and then transition to the throttle. All right, enough of me talking about the car in the pit lane. Let's just actually go out on track here. Ignore that cursed pit exit that I just did. But let's talk about the actual car itself. So I'm going to put timestamps in the video. So there's a whole bunch of different points that you can go to. If you're just looking at this video for one specific thing, the timestamps will be there so you can find it. Let's talk about the racing line first. This is going to be for my very new drivers, my 1000 rating drivers and below. The racing line always works as follows. It varies from track to track and from corner to corner, especially on your driving style as well. But essentially, you want to enter from as far away from the corner as possible. And then you're going to meet the apex. You can see all the black tire marks on the white line. That's your acceleration point. And then if you're going fast enough and you've done it right, the car will naturally carry itself out towards the exit. So this works for every single corner that you're going to be doing. You want to enter as wide as possible. So right on the white line, and then we're going to carry it all the way in. And especially here at Daytona, you want to use as much tarmac as possible. So you kind of cheat over to the left a little bit here. And that is going to help you line up your next thing, right? So our racing line here, same thing. We entered all the way from the left. We hug the apex to the inside of the right here. The car is going to naturally carry itself out, and you want to extend it as much as possible. This is the difference between Max Verstappen and your F3 drivers regularly, is he uses all of the track, and that's what you want to do if you want to qualify in the top 3 every time in iRacing. For the race, you need to take that back a little bit. You can't be doing that because you risk that you know, 1x every time you go off the track, and by the end of the race you'll have 15 1x's because you keep going off track. So there needs to be a balance. All right, so now that you understand the racing line, there's plenty of videos out there. If you feel like I didn't cover that the way you were hoping, you can always look up another video. That's not really what we're here for today, because what I'm here to tell you is that your speed is not in the steering. The steering really doesn't play that much of a role in your racing. It's all about the throttle and braking. So I'm going to show you right now how fast I can stop this Formula 4 car. Very fast, right? And what's very important about that is the downshifting. So you'll notice the downshifting pattern. On my lovely Moza wheel here, I do have RPM lights. You also have RPM lights on the eye overlay and the steering wheel. And what I'm essentially trying to do is you want to downshift the car and get those green lights to show up while you're downshifting. That means that you have downshifted at the perfect point. You want to downshift high in the RPMs. The reason for that is it creates resistance on the rear tires. So we create resistance on the rear tires, which heats them up. This is especially a thing in iRacing. In real life, it's kind of the same too. This is referred to as engine braking. Engine braking is insanely strong in iRacing. So if you want to be fast in iRacing, it's very good to downshift early. Since you're creating that resistance in the rear tires, you're using the engine braking. That heats up the rear tires, and it allows you to rotate the car from the rear, which is what you're going to be doing as a higher iRating driver. And why these open wheelers are a great way to learn that is because that is applicable to basically every single car out there except for the front wheel drive ones. All right, enough yapping about the basics. Let's actually talk about how are you going to get higher iRating by becoming faster. The first thing you need to understand is the braking. We are going to go over all about the braking right here. So I already discussed with you guys the 80%. Let's put it into practice right now. Did you see that downshifting pattern? You see how my braking trace looks? We hit that 85, 90%, and then we trailed off smoothly while downshifting with that pattern that I was discussing with you, hitting those green lights every time, and you can see how fast that slowed the car down. Not only did it slow the car down, it also heated up the rear tires so we can get that rotation through the corner. A very important thing about motor racing is you need to maximize the rotation of the corner. And the brake pedal, I'm going to show you a very cool thing here, actually. When you brake, you are essentially taking the car and dipping the nose down like this. You're pushing all of the weight forward, right? So we press the brakes, the nose pitches down, it goes forward. When you step on the throttle, the exact opposite happens. You are taking the rear of the car and you are applying power to the rear of the car. It lifts the nose up. So motor racing, racing cars, whatever it is that you're racing, is all about balance. It's not about speed. If you can master how to balance a car through the corner, that's what's going to help you gain iRating, because it's not about trying to brake as late as possible and trying to absolutely slam the throttle down. It's about maximizing the balance and keeping the car as flat as possible through a corner. That's going to maximize grip because you're trying to get the tires to stay on the asphalt. You don't want them lifting up. If you've ever seen a car go through a chicane in three-wheel, that's slow. You don't want that. You want all four tires on the ground as much as possible. All right, let's put it into practice through this first corner here, right? We want to avoid a lockup. So you're going to cross over, enter left, right before the car decides to lock up. That's when you lift off the brakes. And you can see, just use the car to balance itself through the corner. Use the throttle, use the brake, and that's going to help you rotate it. All right, another extremely important thing about braking in a race car is you need to trail the brake through a corner to create rotation in the car. I'll show you what I mean coming into T1 here. We're going to hold the brake at like 10% through the corner, and that's going to let it rotate through. So we'll find our braking point, which is probably about right here. And I hold the brake through the corner. You can see it kind of rotates the car a little bit. And the reason that's working is it's taking the front of the car with the splitter and it's pushing it into the track, right? So it's creating downforce. Now we're gonna do it one more time through this high-speed corner because this is a totally different braking style. You're gonna brake less, carry more speed. So again, we brake less, carry more speed, use the engine braking to push the car through the corner, and now we're off through the bus stop. So those are 3 different braking styles through the corners there, and we're gonna go over that very detailed here because that's the difference between 1,000 rating drivers and 2,000 rating drivers. All right, very important to mention, a lot of people will think the equipment you have makes a massive difference. It doesn't really. It definitely makes the experience better, but it doesn't completely dictate how fast you're going to be. So I was able to get to 2,500 iRating with a Thrustmaster T300 and could have definitely gotten higher. With this Moza now, easily into the 3,000 range, it can go higher. So it does make a difference, but it's not the end of the world. So we're going to go over this braking here because this is very, very important of what I was talking about. So your speed in iRacing and racing in real life does not come from the steering or the racing line. It comes from the braking and the throttle. So that is what you need to prioritize the most. So our racing line, right, we're just following the curbs. This is where maybe a little bit more knowledge comes in of a racing line, but it's not the end of the world because this is not where my time is coming from. You might get a 10th or 2 from following a very precise and very good racing line, but you're going to gain seconds from the braking and the throttle. So let's take a look at the braking here. I can tell you what point I'm looking for right now is in the middle of these 2 boards, maybe around the 100 right here. So we cross over in real life. That's why this line is here. You're not actually allowed to cross over the white line pit entry in real life. So that's why they have this dotted line. So we wait for the dotted line. That's when we cross over. And you can see I'm approaching the corner as far left as possible, right? This is going to set ourselves up for the best angle throughout the corner. Now, there are many drivers who brake late and take a more narrow approach to the corner. And then there's other drivers, depending on their driving style, they just go and roll the car through the corner. I tend to kind of be like a little bit of a hybrid. I tend to do both. So you can see, look at our braking down here. We're at 50%. So we want a little bit more than that. In a car like this, that's very light, it's easier to lock up the brakes. So sometimes you might have to use a little less brake, like 60 or 70%. So again, we're around the 70% range here, something like that. And then watch, as I'm downshifting, you can see I'm bleeding off. But right here, this is very, very important in what I was talking about. As I am rotating through the corner, I'm still turning the car, I still have the brakes. Now, it's not heavy braking, but I'm holding that 10-15% because that's pitching the nose down. Like we discussed, it's pitching the nose down and it's rolling the car through the corner. Let's say we have steering angle like this and I'm holding down 50% brakes, you're going to lock the inside front because you're asking too much load of the tire. So you need to be aware that a race car only really wants to do 2 things at once, and it wants to either steer and roll through a corner, or it wants to brake in a straight line before you start steering. So you want to minimize. Basically, what I'm trying to say is a race car doesn't want to do more than one thing at once, so you have to be aware of that. So the first couple times you do this, you might spin out because you're going to be asking too much rotation of the car. This is the fine line and what takes you a little bit of time to gain and what's going to help you go from 2K to 3K to 4K. The drivers that are higher rated are just better at doing this. That's all it is. So right here, you can see we're still 15-20%. We rotate the car through the corner. You can see I use a little bit of a wider approach here, so I'm a little late. I brake later into the corner and then kind of snap the car around just for this particular instance. Now, most tracks on iRacing will have all of this rubber on the painted line on the inside. That'll tell you your ideal acceleration point. So right here, you can see we're already on the throttle. So again, we'll watch it one more time. Bam, we're on the brakes. We're using that 10-15% to rotate it. And now we're on the throttle, setting ourselves up for an exit. And the speed, you can see we actually got a little bit of a snap of oversteer there. If we watch the telemetry right there, we got that little snap. But now the car naturally is going to carry itself to the outside. And notice how we use all of the track. Literally all of it. There's nothing left on the outside. That's what makes a really fast driver. So right here, we're setting ourselves up for a good exit. Now this is a different corner, right? So many newer drivers would approach this very wide. They'd hit this inside curb, and then they'd go all the way to the outside of this yellow curb. That's not what we're going to do in this type of car. This is a higher downforce car. We can make a lighter, tighter racing line to the inside since it's a high downforce car, and we're going to brake all the way to the left because that sets us up better for the hairpin. Now, this is a heavy braking corner, so pay attention to our braking in this one. You can see we brake very, very late. We braked really, really hard at 80%. If we go back a little bit, then we lifted to 50%. So here's our initial braking point. So, 75%, whatever it was. Then we bleed off to 50, and we kind of hold 50 through this whole section. And then once we're ready for that rotation, that's when I'm holding that brake at that 30% point. So I'm ready for the rotation right here. I hold the brake at that 30% point. Then I'm ready to accelerate just about, 1/3 before I'm halfway through the corner, if that makes sense. So a little bit before halfway the corner is when you want to accelerate. And bam, I'm on 50% and I'm pushing the car through the corner. Very important. You don't want the car to be fighting you. So you don't want to be like steering like this and pushing through the corner. You want it like this, very light on the hands. Let the force feedback tell you what the car wants to do. You want to be very, very light on the hands. So if we hop back in the car here, there's all sorts of little tricks that you need to know in just racing a car in general. Now, one very important trick, especially when you're on a hairpin, since we discussed that using the brake actually pitches the nose down, we need to use that in our advantage when cars start to understeer. Maybe around right here, right? We're going through this corner. Car's understeering. What we're going to do, if you look at my brake, little brake stabs. We can try and not lock up the brakes here on cold tires. So let's roll it through. Let's say it's understeering. We do a few brake stabs there. You saw that in the braking trace. Helps rotate the car through the corner. We'll do the same thing again. Right? A few little braking stabs. Helps rotate it through the corner. Now, in this example, right, that was not faster because there's no reason that we need to be doing that. But I wanted to show you guys that because there are going to be times where your car understeers and you're not going to be able to recover from that understeer if you just continue with what you're doing. So using that little brake stabbing is going to help you a lot. So before we end off this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to jump through the different formula type cars on a track and show you what the difference is between all of them and why these fundamentals, they stay the same between any formula car that you're driving. Let's go. All right, let's go over a Long Beach lap here. So I'm going to show you guys basically what we were doing with the F4 car now transferred to a completely different environment. Let's rewind a little bit and go to T1 because this is very important. So this is a higher speed corner. It's third gear, so we want to carry more momentum through the corner. So that is essentially what I'm trying to do here. I'm looking for the 250 right in between these two, and I'm going to downshift to third gear so we carry more speed, and I'm going to use less braking. So you can see we're heavy braking off the start, which is our threshold. That's our highest peak, but we're trailing off of the brakes, and we're going to let the car roll through in that third gear, right? So again, we're using that 10% like we talked about to rotate the rear, and then we let the car roll through. And just as we're about halfway through the corner, probably before, bam, we're back on the throttle, and we're using that to accelerate the car out of the corner. A technique that you'll learn through going through chicanes and sharp corners that have a lot of exit room. In this particular example, this corner has some exit room and it's straight afterwards. So we stab the brakes. It's like a very sharp stab to pitch the nose down, get that front downforce activated, and then use the car's rotation because of that, because of the unsettledness of the stabbing is the best way to explain that. It's going to help rotate the car through that corner. So you'll see, we'll play it in full speed here. So we're accelerating, stab, And that rotation allows us to roll through the corner. Of course, since we're on a street course, as we discussed, you want to use the whole track. That's going to help you become faster. So again, I am right up against the wall. Let's look at the suspension here. We'll go left rear suspension. Look at the amount of space we have there. There's basically nothing. So that is what separates the good drivers from the great drivers. They use all of the track. So you have to use every single inch of the track here as well. This is very important to go over, especially with open wheelers. Curbs unsettle open wheelers like crazy. You have to be very cautious of the curbs. Here, I just overstepped the boundary a little bit. It's like 5% over the boundary. Right here, what you want to hit is actually the inside ramping of the curb. You can see where the sun is shining off of the curb right here. That's what you want to hit. You don't want to go over. So right here, you can see my right front tire actually goes over, and that compromises my exit because it launches the car up in the air. Right? So you can see it gets launched in the air, unsettles the car, makes the exit worse than it needs to be. Now going down into the downhill braking, we're just setting ourselves up along the wall, right? We want to use as much of that space as possible. Granted, there's another tire length we could use here, which is, it is what it is. We end up missing that point, and this is actually going to compromise our whole corner. But the whole reason I'm talking about this is because you can actually use less braking in this situation because of the fact that you're moving downhill. What do I mean by that? When you brake, you're taking the nose of the car and you're pitching it downwards like this. So if we are moving downhill, you're already like this. Now you're going to be going like this, right? Very exaggerated. It really lifts the rear wheels off of the ground. So that means there's a lot of rotation in the rear wheels. So you want to use less braking because of that physics that's happening. So we're braking less throughout the corner. You can see I'm only at like 20% here because we're already rotating through. It's such a high-speed corner to begin with. You know, we're 70 miles an hour. All of the weight of the car is on the left side, so you have to be aware of that. So it's all on the left front. We hit lots and lots of bumps there, especially on Long Beach. There's a really bad bump in here as well. So if you hit it, you will spin. So you have to very finely thread the needle through there. Ideally, you'd like to be right up against this wall where all these tire marks are. And so, unfortunately, I just missed my mark on this particular lap. But you can see we're right up against the wall on the exit. The braking really lifts that car up, so that's very important. That's why I wanted to go over that. Now, right here, this is a good example because this is an off-camber corner. So this is a heavy braking zone. So where you want to hit that 80% mark and then trail off. So we look for the 300, and you can see we actually go past it, and bam, we're right on that 75, 80%. And we're trailing off of the brake. Now we're at 5%. And you can see we're back on the throttle, all by using that rotation tip that we went over. Now right here, this is actually just very simple. I'm going to explain it very quickly. I'm just waiting for the car to be pointed in a straight line before we brake. That's it. It's not that complicated. We just need to brake the car in a straight line. You don't want to be braking beyond like 30 or 40% if you're not in a straight line, because that's just going to lock the front wheels. So then we clutch in so that there's no resistance on the wheels through this very sharp hairpin. And then we get a little bit of wheel spin on the exit. We go to the line, and I don't know what this lap is, but it's, let's see. It's going to be a 14.8. I don't know if that's fast in this car or not, but that's what it is. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I just wanted to show you guys a few of the actual examples we went over put into practice on a completely different environment so you can see how it transfers over to different tracks and whatnot. So this is something that is applicable to every single car. You can use this in any type of thing that you're racing. So it's very important to master this skill, and it's not that hard of a change to make. So yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. This will guaranteed make you a faster driver. It might take some practice like everything does. But in the next video, we're going to be going over how to actually race people better, because that's really what's going to help you get your iRating to that desired level or goal that you have. So anyways, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.